have to cry no more. And we won't have to cry no more.
I'll start now while Link's still drinking, just to make it awkward. All right, guys. Episode 4 of the Eat, Sleep, Train podcast. With us, we have 4-time Olympian judo black belt. I guess that means something, maybe in your world. And UFC veteran Dan Kelly, been a good friend of mine for a long time, and a training partner, and a wealth of experience and knowledge in the grappling arts and MMA. So we're sitting down on the couch to talk with him about what he's been doing, what he's done. How you doing, man?
Very good. Thanks for having me on. You didn't say BJJ black belt.
I was about to say
Commonwealth Games, representative in wrestling.
Oh yeah,
Really?
that's right.
Oh.
I forgot about that one. I forgot about that one.
You're like a walking success.
Undefeated Muay Thai fighter.
I know. I know.
One-
Who-
Was that from one match or?
Well, 4.
Oh,
Paul?
wow.
Where did you train Muay Thai? Who were your coaches when you did that?
Was here.
Yeah.
Keith Grant.
I love Keith. He's fucking hilarious.
So do I.
Yeah.
Great man.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So why not start at the start? Tell us a little bit about how you got started in judo. You know, your career with that was quite long. The 4 Olympics is quite a bit.
How old are you?
How old was I when I started judo?
Yeah.
So we started at the beginning. So I was 7 when I started judo. My dad did judo. He's a black belt in judo as well. Just trained away and then didn't really get anywhere until I was about 16. I always wanted to go to the Olympics from when I watched 1988 Seoul Olympics.
Yep.
So I was in grade 5. Then when I hit 16, I started doing well at a senior level, and then it just spilled on from there.
When you say you didn't really get anywhere until you were 16, what do you mean? You weren't very good at it, or?
I was okay. I was always, much like you still are, I was always a scrawny little runt as a kid. And
I endorse that sentiment 100%.
Yeah,
Not
can't
very-
deny the truth.
Not very strong physically, very fit, naturally very fit.
It's still going.
Well, you're definitely not scrawny now, are you?
No. I would have eaten that scrawny kid.
Potentially not fit either.
No, definitely not fit. Definitely not fit. Hit 16 and then was my first senior nationals and actually medalled senior nationals, beat someone who became my coach and also beat the reigning national champion then, who was a good friend of mine later.
Yep.
And that kind of went, maybe I can actually do something, even though I wanted to as a kid. And then just kept going.
Was it the change in physicality, like just getting bigger and stronger? Was it hitting a critical mass with your knowledge? What was it that made the difference?
I think it was just, I was pretty stubborn and tenacious when I competed, and that gave me the capacity to probably overwhelm a lot of other guys who were fitter, stronger. I didn't really I was never, in judo, I was never the strongest guy in the division. I was the fittest, but I was always very tactical when I competed in judo. That was probably what helped me get to a higher level even internationally, was the fact that I could read and play through a match, and something called grip fighting, which is very important. I was good at, even at an international level as well when I was competing.
How much do you reckon the judo strategy is based on grip fighting? How much comes down to that?
At a high international level, very, very important. I mean, you can have the best throws and the best technique in the world, but if you can't actually put your hands where you want to throw, there's no point.
Yep.
So what's it like growing up with a dad who is also a judo black belt? Did you guys train together, or was he still active in judo when you started judo, or was it, okay, dad used to be a black belt, I'm going to follow in his footsteps, but he's no longer active?
He got back involved when he took me down. All 3 of us did judo, all 3 kids. I just stuck at it. He loved the sport, but he wasn't active when I went into it. He got active again when I jumped in. But yeah, not that much.
See, he was recreational in judo. Did he compete much, or?
Yeah, I think he won a national title once in one of the organisations. There's a lot of politics. And
Was?
Well, still not as bad as it was, and it was worse then. It's better now. But he, in one of the organisations, won the nationals, but never competed overseas or anything like that.
Yep.
Can I, from the competitive perspective, you said something that you felt like overwhelmed your the competitors early on, or from when you hit about 16, was your stubbornness. That having wrestled you and or watched you compete, it's something that's very noticeable. But I've also heard you speak about you being very nervous to the point where you vomited before competition. So I think it'd be interesting for people, like, did that develop early, or the higher the level of competition, the more like the nerves beforehand started to develop? And I guess I think it'd be interesting. I'm interested to know, and I think it'd be good for others to know, that as a high level athlete, you suffer the same things everyone else does, and how you overcame that.
Just so you know, most questions go for 25 minutes.
25 minutes. Always the best questions too.
I never got over it. So when I was a little kid, playing the trumpet, only judo, individual things. Like go and play footy as a team, you kind of get hidden a little bit. And that's actually why I like individual sport. No one else to blame, no one else to rely on. But I used to vomit all the way through kids, seniors, up until I stopped competing. And I never actually overcame it. I just accepted that was going to be part of the process. Now, if I wasn't retching and felt ill,
You weren't ready.
yeah, there clearly was something wrong. Obviously, lower level comps, I wasn't as worried, but anything that was important, I did. I remember the last qualifying we had before London. It was a guy I'd beaten every time. It was okay. It was no problem. He'd done a lot of training overseas, and I was standing on the side of the mat retching, and my wife's just going, "Why are you doing this?" And I'm like, "I love it." She goes, "You look like you're going to your own funeral. What's wrong with you?" But it never went away. I remember MMA fights, even big ones. You know, I'd be walking around the change room going, "Ugh," like I was going to vomit. You remember?
Oh, I remember.
The whole time. And just accepted that that's what it was going to do.
So what do you think was the switch then as you walked into the competitive arena, like onto the mat or into the cage or whatever it was? Like,
That's a good question, actually.
what made you, those feelings disappear and you suddenly become like a focused, possessed demon, not stopping until you win, essentially?
I think the focus narrows in, and after I'm not the fastest starter. After a minute or so, it's just everything just locks in to where it's supposed to be, and it's the best. Competing, I mean, all you guys have competed. For me, competing and getting into a match and being tired, and it sounds a little bit bad, but breaking someone else's will and spirit is one of the most enjoyable things to do in combat sport.
Mate, that doesn't sound bad. That sounds like a thing of beauty.
But I mean, that's what it's about at the end of the day, though. You know, all piss taking aside, that's the goal that we're trying to actually achieve. Because you can hit someone as much as you want, and some guys will break really early, and some guys won't, unless you knock them out. But a lot of the time, the turning points in the matches are a slowing down, a reluctance to kind of move forward, push forward into discomfort, all that sort of stuff. I think that's it. I think that's what it's about, is that thing. Have you found that experience to be relatively similar across the disciplines that you've done? So you competed, you got judo, wrestling, Muay Thai, MMA. You never competed at jiu-jitsu, did you?
Yeah, I did your GTA.
Oh, you did too. You did too.
I won a trip to Vegas.
You did.
And we had to negotiate that beforehand. You said,
Yep.
I'm not going to give you a trip. And I said, you got to give me some kind of carrot. And he said, okay, if you win your division and you win the open, we'll give you a trip.
There you go. That's a good point. Well, you know, we don't want just, you know, pretend jiu-jitsu guys who are judo guys coming in and, you know, taking the talent out. But do you notice differences between the disciplines of the arts in the way that competition experience feels? Is there a difference when someone's trying to kick and punch you in the face?
No. The higher the level of the competition, the more nervous you get. In terms of the strategy, it's the way I look at all combat sports is they're all the same. It's just a different set of rules to win.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all a puzzle and being able to impose yourself and impose what you want to do on the other person. So across all sports, it's like coaching now. The fundamentals for coaching, and I coach high-level judo guys and high-level MMA guys, the structure I have and the approach is the same. If you know the subject matter, it doesn't change that much. And obviously, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, everyday life, let alone coaching. But that structure is the way I've found the best way to push across your experience as well.
Well, so while we're talking about cups of tea, what's your actual style of coaching? Like, how do you manage your students?
Well, it's not a democracy. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
So look, my big thing is, which they know, I'm lucky because in the MMA, they all trained. They all trained with me, so they knew how hard I worked. They knew what I did, even being 40. The judo guys, it's spilled over a little bit because it's been longer since I competed, but there's enough people around that they know. And
Yep.
they also, it's getting buy-in, but also accountability, consistency, and structure. They're the big things for me.
Yeah. I would say that the most defining characteristic, like having known you from when you've been competing in judo, through your Muay Thai and through your first 4 or 5 MMA fights, I think it was.
7. 6.
Something like that. But so seeing you compete in different disciplines, and we used to train together a lot, I think one of the most defining things about you is your, I was going to say stubbornness, but it's really just mental toughness. There's a certain resilience you have.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it is a very apt name for
Plug.
your gym. And Dan's gym, Footscray Resilience Training Centre, we'll link it up in the description.
Thank you.
But anybody that's trained with you, I think any amount would say that's probably the most defining thing about you with your, not necessarily your approach, but the way that you are. You're on the mat for whatever it is that you're doing. And even at some of the fights as well that you've had as well, it seems very, very difficult to mentally break you. Does that come from anything in particular? Do you feel that that's something that can be worked on, developed, or is it you find it's more innate?
For me, it's been innate. I mean, I've had lots of great coaches across my career, but I've always come with the same package. Now, anyone who comes with that package, to me, it's easy because, I mean, you can learn things, you can adapt. You don't have to be the most skillful. I was never a skillful kid. I mean, I'm not skillful now. I'm not super coordinated. I'm okay, but I'm not. No one would say, "Oh, wow, he's a really coordinated, skillful, picks up things quickly guy." That's not me. So when I coach, they know what they're getting. Like Jimmy Crute, for example, who I'm his takedown and grappling coach now. Sam Greco's his striking coach. Now, Jimmy's managed to pick 2 of the biggest ball breakers in the sport to bust his nuts, and he's happy about it.
Yeah.
So it's about a choice thing. And I mean, in judo, I've had some people who I haven't been able to help as much as I want to. Some people have gotten as far as they could go. Not everyone's going to be able to. Everyone has the capacity to become an Olympian and go to high level. Not everyone can.
Yep.
So you get them to where you want to go. We've got a guy who broke his neck, and he's just to get him back on the mat and competing at a national level, and he did international competitions as well. Fantastic. We've got a girl who's in a qualifying position at the moment. That's been a big battle of dragging her along and just having a little bit more urgency and a little bit tougher and harder. So everyone's different, but there's some non-negotiables. That in everyone is different, but there's some non-negotiables that people have to be able to be successful.
To be able to be successful with you.
No, I think in general.
And what are those non-negotiables?
Non-negotiables is hard work,
Yep.
sacrifice,
Yep.
consistency, and structure. You have to be structured, have to be consistent. You've got to make, and this is a big argument I have with a lot of the guys, and I try and educate in a much nicer way the younger ones. Don't make excuses not to come to training. Make excuses to come to training.
Yep.
You don't miss. I mean, I didn't do my deb because that was on a judo night.
What's a deb?
A debutante ball. Do you guys?
Yeah, I know what it is.
You know what
Yeah.
it is.
It's like what do the Yanks call it? It's like
It's like a prom.
The prom.
Like a prom,
It's kind
yeah.
of prom.
Yep.
And you practice dancing and all that crap. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. The person who I was meant to go with, who asked me, she didn't speak to me for the rest of the year. But I'm like, no, it's on a judo night. I'm not
training.
going.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not missing. That's a choice everyone makes. And yeah, everyone says things about life balance. I agree. All my athletes, the judo athletes, study university. They do a trade. So it's important to have a life balance, but don't make excuses. You want to do the hard yards. You want to go to Olympics.
Can
what you have to do.
we talk about balances for a second? Because I think people mistake the idea of balance for fitting in all these other things and not letting the thing that you're trying to chase down overwhelm those other things. But if you want to go to an Olympics, if you want to win a world championship, if you want to fight MMA, balance it's shifted. It's skewed really heavily in the direction of the thing that you want to do. It's not a 50-50 split between that and the other things. It becomes 80-20 or whatever it might be. So I think people can quite often mistake that idea. The balance needs to be skewed if you want to succeed in something.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be even.
No, it's never going to be even, but you need to do something else as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I never finished university, which I regret, and I don't have many regrets in my life.
Why do you regret that?
Why? Because it's always a backup. It's always a backup. So I run my business. I spent a long time in hospitality just to pay for my judo career. I used to when I was starting MMA, I used to sneak to training in between shifts at work.
I remember.
Just to
I was gonna mention that. That's when I first met you, and you said nothing was off the cards. So I'm assuming Maria knows this now.
yes, Maria thought I was thought I was playing.
Don't
up.
tell my wife.
She goes, are you having an affair or something? I was, yeah, with these guys.
So yeah, every time we would come to the pro classes back in the old days, it was always, don't tag me on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because you're on a break from work.
Yep. Absolutely.
So can we step back on things? Because not surprisingly, we segued really quickly. So you started training judo at 7. When was your first Olympics?
2000. I was 23.
Yeah. And you did another 3 after that, so another 12 years. You started cross-training in jiu-jitsu to supplement your judo before that. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of the Olympics is incredibly challenging, and it's only every 4 years, which makes it potentially harder again. But can you tell us a little bit about that process, why you started cross-training, anything that you discovered through that process of 12 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to 2004, after 2000, obviously. In that process, my coach finished coaching me. He had a lot of stuff going on in his life, so I was kind of left to my own devices. So I've been my own coach in judo since 2005, pretty much. So, pardon me, I needed extra training. Not many training partners around. Went to Hangar 4 for a little while I was injured, and wasn't doing that much judo in 2005, but needed something else to do. Rang around to a whole heap of different places just to see what the fit would be, and ended up speaking to you on the phone. And Friday night was when I needed to be able to train. All the other sessions were kind of filled in, and we started coming down to open mat, and that was on the old Dominance.
Yeah, that was the second place, which is this is our 4th now. Corner Bridge and Church.
Yep.
With the one mat. Yeah, I remember you coming in on Friday nights and with the bunch of the other judo guys as well.
Yep.
And I remember you smashing most of the guys on the mat because they just weren't. And I'm like, all right, no, I'm gonna have to go in there and sort this guy out. But were you a blue belt back then?
Yeah, I was a blue belt. Yeah. John Will gave me my blue belt when I was at Hangar 4.
Yeah.
And it was.
So what age were you when you started training jiu-jitsu?
28.
Yeah. Okay.
28. So yeah, 2005 I started doing jiu-jitsu. 2004, 2005.
That was to supplement your judo, to make you better at competing at judo.
Yeah, absolutely. And also more training partners because we've got such few high-level training partners, and it gets pretty stale 4 times a week training with the same 3 guys over and over. It was a fresh look. Yeah, I was already a fan of MMA back then on the cassettes, the VHS cassettes. So I thought, we'll give this a go, and then you were the most responsive. It was funny. I still remember this first phone call actually because I'd always tiptoe around. I didn't really want to say, I didn't know if anyone knew who I was doing judo, and I tiptoe around. Oh, look, I've done a bit of judo, and then Dave's like, oh yeah, well, okay. Well, what is it actually that you do? I said, Sophie knew Maria, and he goes, oh, so you're Dan Kelly? Yeah, just come down. We'll see you then. That's it. But he got really impatient really quickly with the tiptoeing around. I went,
doesn't sound like me at all. What are you talking about?
This will be interesting. So, and it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. The Friday nights, I mean, it was up and down. Poor Cam had to roll with me a lot as well, which he didn't always enjoy because I kept giving up turtle and then standing up and then trying to spin around like a hula hoop. But it was great. It was great times, and it set up for a really good relationship that's still here now.
When was that? What year was that?
That was 2007, I think I started coming.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's a long time, though. It's definitely been a long time. So you ended up, you started training jiu-jitsu between your second and your third Olympics.
Yeah.
So, like, first Olympics, going there, what was your experience like?
Oh, awesome. In being in Sydney, home Olympics, I won a couple of matches and finished top 10.
That's significant, right?
It was big. It was big. And the guys I beat were good too. I mean, the American guy was an Olympic silver medalist, world bronze medalist.
Yeah.
And the Italian guy I beat was good. He was a European champion after that. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
What did you come away from that first Olympics with? Did it change the way that you were training judo, thinking about judo, competition?
It did. I struggled a little bit after 2000. 2001, I had a bad year. I think because I couldn't work out a way to get to the next level. And obviously I had a coach. My coach was great, but I wanted to be here.
What was your best performance?
Athens was my best performance.
Where'd you get?
Top eight in Athens. That was my best ever performance. I had idea on how I wanted to do things and how to structure things. I don't think I wasn't mature enough, one, and I didn't have the pull or the people around me to push me in the directions I needed to go. Because I figured out a lot of crap myself, same as even in MMA. I mean, the way I transitioned gi judo to no gi judo and the way I implemented it in MMA, that wasn't done here really. I mean, Rhonda did it, but in a different way, coming up and like starting a division, which she did an awesome job, but actually linking judo and linking small things into the game, that hasn't really been done.
And there's a significant difference in that the women's division wasn't really established, and that it didn't have the depth, whereas the men's, very different.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and Rhonda did a great job, and she put judo on the map as something that needs to be looked at least. But
and can be incorporated into MMA, because I
Absolutely.
think a lot of previously a lot of people dismissed it because it's a gi thing.
Yep.
That's not really going to work that well. All the takedowns in for MMA just wants to be wrestle, like freestyle or Greco.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, people are doing judo all over the place. They probably were previously, but just
for
not being noticed.
Not that much. And also as people in base MMA and in the UFC, all the freestyle wrestlers would shoot from long range.
Yep.
And that was something I worked on, was knowing different ranges.
Yep.
So I knew a freestyle wrestler was dangerous at just outside striking range because they could throw something and shoot underneath.
Yep.
But in close in a clinch, I could be happy with any level of wrestler.
Yeah, and you were quite successful there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just before we move on to MMA, so
Sorry.
that's all right. No, that's cool. You've been to 4 Olympics, which is amazing, and no other Australian judoka has ever done so. I don't even know if there's many Australian Olympians, full stop, that have done so.
Yeah, there's a few. I managed to get into the first line. So at opening ceremonies, the ones who have been to the most Olympics are put in the first line, the opening ceremony. I was in the first line in London,
Wow.
which was really cool. But there's been some 5, 6, 7-time Olympians. Depends on the sport. Horse riding, shooting, a little less hard on your body. But there's Maria, my wife, went to 5 Olympics for judo.
Yeah.
No one else has done
That's
more
amazing.
than that.
Were they all for Australia?
No, 2 for Hungary, 3 for Australia.
Yeah.
She's medalled as well.
She got bronze in Sydney.
Yeah,
which is huge.
Wow.
And fought for a medal in 2008 after she'd had a child
So-
as well.
Yeah, which is huge.
So just before I actually get to the question I do have, I got another question now. What's it? So you're a skinny 17-year-old,
Yep.
right? You're not coordinated, which, you know, a lot of people who haven't done the things you've done would be like, this guy's full of shit. But we understand what you mean.
Yep.
There's some people that just move effortlessly, and there's some people that move other people with their effort, which is kind of your style, I guess you could say. Yeah?
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's
So when I do get questions in, I got good ones. So Okay, so I got another question after this, but we'll deal with this one. So you're a uncoordinated 17-year-old. You vomit before your matches. Okay, you haven't had a lot of success. Next minute, you're walking out to your first match at your first Olympics. What the fuck is that like? Because I mean, in our sport, we don't have Olympics.
Yep.
So like, what the hell is that like?
Well, it was a dream. I've never been so nervous before a competition than I was in Sydney, especially because the guy I'd lost to earlier that year. It was a close match. Very, very nervous. But I mean, I try to think back on these things. A lot of them become a blur, and obviously, as I've been older and been hitting the head more, it's more difficult. But again, even warm-up time, process, structure. You take solace in the fact that you've done the work, and you know you've got a structure that if you follow this, you've always got points to fall back on. And if you stick to your structures and go back a step if you need to go forward again, it's going to be okay. And I remember the first exchange with the guy I was competing against. The last match, he's American. He was talking during the match, and that didn't put me off much. But I thought, you cock. So the first thing I made sure I did when I fought him in Sydney was take one hand on and clock him across the head as hard as I could, just so he knew, and then I dragged him down to the ground. I remember walking back to my spot because it was Mate break, and him looking at me, and I just looked at him and a little nod, and he must have known then that it was going to be an unpleasant 5 minutes for him. So
that sounds like all the training sessions we ever had.
Yeah, you can see the similarities between that and UFC career as well. Yeah. So you've been through the 4 Olympics, and you've been a national coach. Is that right?
Yeah, I was a national coach in Rio, and I'll possibly be national coach again for.
And so obviously you've been to countless World Cups, which for the jiu-jitsu people, the judo circuit's a bit different. You have World Cups where you earn qualifying points. You have to fund yourself as well?
Some, partially, yeah.
Okay, yep. So you've been to the Olympics, you've coached at the Olympics, you've been to World Cups, and you've coached at World Cups. I'm wondering what the elite level training for judoka is like, and what are they potentially doing that you think maybe jiu-jitsu people aren't doing, if there's anything?
At the higher level?
At that World Cup, Olympic level.
I think the jiu-jitsu guys now are starting to move that way. I don't know that they have to compete as often as the judo guys do. And because there's all that focus on the one day, if jiu-jitsu was in the Olympics, you'd see some similarities. I mean, even in the other combat sports like wrestling and boxing, all very, very different preparations because of the competitions they have to do. There's not going to be as many 4-time Olympians, 3-time Olympians in judo now because it's too much strain on the body. I mean, pardon me, for London, for example. For London, for example, 2 of the people who I coached, Carly and Evo, competed 14 times in the year leading up or something like that. I only competed 3. One because I had a family at home, and 2 because I was very clear about what I needed to do. I didn't need to be in as high as I could. I went, okay, I'm going to qualify. There was various reasons why I did, but I knew that if I did the results I needed to do, I'd get in. So the workload for them now is very hard, and it's even harder again now because our qualifying isn't through our regionals in Oceania, it's Asia. So we have to, our continentals, we used to be able to be guaranteed a block of points. Now we have to go and do it through Asia. And Asia's not just full of the Koreans, Japanese and Chinese, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and they're really good judo nations. So it's not so easy anymore.
Can I ask off the back of Link's question in terms of preparation? Has your preparation for judo in terms of doing things outside actually practicing the sport differed for when you did the Muay Thai, when you did MMA?
Yep.
And can you elaborate on that a little bit, like percentage or proportion of strength work, conditioning work, and what type of work that was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like I couldn't have done judo during my MMA career. Like in terms of, okay, now scrap doing the MMA stuff, do another Olympics. My body wouldn't have coped with it because it's 5-6 days a week of your body getting thrown. Even when you're practicing with no resistance, you're getting thrown, your partner's getting thrown over and over. So I used to try and do, I think it was four judo sessions plus the grappling session, and then 3 strength conditioning sessions, and I'd link in some kind of running with that. I was never a huge strength conditioning person, but obviously I had to, because I had to physically be able to, as we said, if you're not, like we said with the gripping, if I'm not strong enough to break someone's grip, then it doesn't matter what I can do.
Yeah.
So it was much more specific around that. MMA was a little bit easier because you'd box, you'd do takedowns, you'd roll. I only ever did 2 conditioning sessions a week plus an extra run when I was doing the MMA, because I had so much other stuff I had to do. And I had to learn how to strike, which was always ugly even at the end. So it was much easier on the body. The only thing that was hard towards the end in MMA was the dieting. So getting to 84 was hard yakka.
And you're also doing it at an older age as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Harder still.
So I mean, I think that's an interesting point, because even like the introduction to jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and MMA was all like quite old compared to most people getting into it. So again, it makes me think of your gym name and you as a person, and also like obviously mind comes into it a lot, but genetically there must be some significant resilience there to put up with the amount of training that you've had to do. And from the short amount, I don't know you as well as Dave, but from the small snippets small conversations I've had with you, it doesn't ever sound like your life has been easy. Like you've worked jobs that you've hated, which takes a massive toll on us from a stress perspective, which takes energy away from things like this. Huge hours, a partner that was physically active as well, so both of you have to be sacrificial and selfish in terms of your own training. Kids that aren't well, like you've had to put up with a lot of shit, and you still manage to do it all.
That's, to be honest, that's probably why I coach the way I do, because I never made excuses. You'd know this. I bitched and moaned like everyone does about their girlfriend or partner at times. Okay, don't go, no, I've never done that, guys. At times, and yeah, I mean, when I was at Dominance and when I was making the transition, coaching as well at the judo club and coaching at a high level, and then trying to start these new sports in a job that was hard, that I didn't like. We had a whole heap of shit going on at home. It's about what you choose to do. I mean, it's very easy, and this is, I don't like talking like this, but it's very easy to go, woe is me, everything's too hard, I'm not going to do it. Or you can go, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to find a way to do it, and that's it. And everything else things will sort, in a way they'll sort out, but you just have to do it. Yeah. I just went, okay, I'm doing this, and I'm going to do all of this.
I remember when I first met you, I think you were in your 30s already.
Yeah, for sure.
And had only fairly recently got into judo, but into the ground grappling game. No striking experience, sneaking away at lunch to do training. And then I remember sitting there one day and you're saying, I'm going to do MMA. And I'm like, what the fuck? This guy's fucking nuts. But I remember being floored at how adamant and confident and just it's going to happen in terms of how you presented it. And I was like, it's just for normal people, I think that's really interesting, because most people would grapple with decision-making processes and make those excuses. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a big reason for your success, is that you just clear cut on what you want, and B, you take control of the situation, rather than making the excuses. It's interesting to watch.
And crazy. You are right about the crazy.
And I guess that, you've mentioned structure many times. I guess that's where structure comes in, and maybe something that Dave mentions a lot is mindfulness, So at this time I'm going to judo, and when I'm at training, my mind is on training. It's not on family. And when I'm with the family, my mind is on the family. Would you say that? Would you say that that's part of your structure?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't do anything about anything else when you're not there. And that's
something
a big
I think.
thing. So, I mean, it's not, look, I'm not going to say that I was always like that. Yeah, everyone has bad days or good days, but you go, this is what I'm doing. That's it. And that was, I mean, I used to start work an hour later so I could go and do the morning Muay Thai classes, because they're the only ones I could fit in, except for a Thursday night when I would teach a private, then do the Muay Thai class, then coach the judo class. And I was always just finding different ways to fit training in. Around 50 hours a week at the cafe, family as well. I wanted to do it. And I didn't ever think in the MMA side of things that I'd get as far as I got, but I just went, nah, I'm going to give it a crack.
It's interesting. I think that speaks to that default setting that you've got of like, I'm going to find a way to squeeze as much juice out of this as I possibly can. And maybe coming into it older, but you've got some pre-existing skill sets that are really useful. You understand how to train really well around certain, I'm not going to say limitations, but there's certain obstacles there that you've got to navigate. And the other thing I think that it probably makes apparent is that a lot of other people are making excuses all the time.
Mm-hmm. The sort of smack of the cliche that you listen to the podcast and you listen to a Navy SEAL or some other
Goggins or something
hard motherfucker. Yeah, Goggins or another hard motherfucker like you who basically just says, fuck the world in my 50, 60 hour week. I'll train at 6, like Arnie, sleep less. Just and then your average Joe who just, it doesn't matter whether they had the same mentality as you. They just wouldn't get through it. And they wouldn't get through it, man. A lot of that
they probably wouldn't have the mentality, though.
There is mentality, but there is also genetic makeup.
See, I think anyone can. And when I have the kids, I've got kids coming through in judo now, I've refused to pigeonhole their potential or capacity. And that's not physical, that's hard work and discipline. I mean, Ivo dos Santos and Carly Renzi, two of the most untalented people I've ever met, and they worked so hard and qualified for Olympics in a new world ranking list system that they should maybe not have. Everyone had written them off, but hard work, structure, and discipline, and just not giving up, they got to where they wanted to go.
Yeah.
So I think anyone can if they so choose to.
Can I interject? There's one thing I want to make, because I think Muzz has got the idea that you've held up better than you have. As long as I've known you, you have not been able to train without using 5 rolls of strapping tape.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, no.
My body's not great.
There's a difference between 5 rolls of strapping tape and physically not being able to handle that load. And you can argue until you're blue in the face that anyone can make it to anything that they want.
We know that's not true.
Not bashing the American, but it's not true for any sport, and it's not true for any venture. It's just like the reason the people are there is because you put all of us in a room and all of us go for every member that's here right now, and you put them on an isolated island and they all go through they get the best coaching possible, blah, 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 and nothing else to, I suppose, distract them from making it to whatever level it is that they're trying to, world level. The same people will get there. You'd still have the same top 10 people. I reckon the tier would be exactly the same. It's natural pecking order, man.
Yeah,
I mean, I think without us getting too deep into this, I think mindset, like Dan is saying, is number one, and Dave is saying, if you have the mindset, then you can take your body there. Because, I don't most people can't go from 3 sessions a week to Dan's schedule. But if you start slow and you build, you can build your body to withstand those kind of rigors to a degree. Obviously, you get broken at some point. And I know myself, when I was starting the gym, I was working literally 16 to 17 hours a day, every day, and training on Sundays, and still got my best international result, getting a bronze at World Masters, etc. And everyone says to me, "How do you do it?" And I'm like, "Well, I just started slow and I built my way up." And I'm definitely physically not gifted in any sense of the word. But the genetic component is interesting because we just don't know enough about genetics, not physically, but to know whether part of Dan's mindset is part of his genetic makeup or not. And that's an interesting conversation, which us four sitting on his couch certainly can't answer because we don't have that thing. But, it's the people who maybe can't mentally withstand it, maybe that's a genetic component within themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to train twice a week and enjoy yourself, that's fucking great. Like, no one has to be. You don't have to be Dan Kelly. That's for certain. And there's probably been days where Dan Kelly wishes he wasn't Dan Kelly. You know what I mean? So I think that's really interesting. But if you want to do it, if you have the mind, I think you can make the body follow. Just, you've got to be smart about it.
If it's a big thing if you want to do it. If you want it and you're willing to just do it. Don't make excuses. And Link's absolutely right. And especially the business we're in, we want people to exercise. We want people to do things. It doesn't mean they have to go and be a high level or even compete at all. It's all about it's good for you. Like the endorphin release clearly must be good. Otherwise, why the hell would I still be training and exercising? Well, not as much as I used to, but but why would you? And that's the big thing with kids is that, and it does sound a little bit wanky American, you can be whatever you want to be. It's up to you. It's up to you. And then there's all sorts of layers of things that get in the way. Parental support, family stuff. There's a whole heap of stuff. But
I'm not taking that away from you, but that statement is hog shit.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's degrees, right? Because if you only max out at 5'8", you're probably not going to be an NBA player. But
agreed.
In a sport like ours, that doesn't matter.
I mean,
agreed.
But
That, if you're talking about that genetic thing, you're right. So,
But to a degree, it's hard, right? Because you can make that example, and then we can point out some basketball
Excuse me,
players
gents.
who were really short. I think Muggsy Bogues was 5'4".
Yeah, but it's not about height. It's their wingspan.
Yeah, but sure. But I mean, he gave examples.
But in a sport like judo though, that's weight divisions. It doesn't matter how small you are. It doesn't matter how big you are. So I'm talking about specifically from judo perspective. If you want to do it, there is a possibility that you can get to a high level. There's that it is not dependent on genetics. It's not dependent on anything other than the things I've said. Now, yeah, across the big broad thing, I agree. It's not possible. I mean, some races are better at swimming than others, like that kind of thing. But I'm talking about specifically in judo. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I say that honestly to the kids. You can go as far as you want to go. Up to you. Up to you. And my job as a coach, which I haven't gotten to yet, is to be a better coach than I was an athlete, is to get someone to get better results than you did.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm not there yet, and I want to be. And that's rare because a lot of coaches kind of keep their foot on athletes' heads and they want to be the big dog. I've succeeded when I've coached someone to fight for an Olympic or world medal, to coach someone to be top 10 in the UFC. That's what I want.
There's a few things that are happening at the same time. So we're coaches, but there's still athletes and competitors in us that are on the mat. So there's part of us that want to be as good as we can be. And we, as the competitor or the athlete, we want to be beating everybody in the gym all the time. And we want to be beating them when they're at their best. But then there's the coach in us that is also happy when they have those moments when they start catching us. And as we get older and they start getting skilled, and that should start happening more frequently. But the ultimate goal of a coach is to make, for in jiu-jitsu, we talked about this previously, is you want to make a blue belt better than the blue belt that you were.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you want to have your competitive students get better results than you did.
Yep.
And hopefully every generation is getting better and better and better. Hopefully. It's hard.
It's happened for me now. I can't match my good top-level judo guys at training anymore. I physically can't. I can't match, like, say, Jimmy, for example, in training and sparring. It's horrible. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not a mental thing. Physically, I just can't do it. And we haven't talked about the toll on my body.
So I think this goes to Murray's point, though, is that some people physically can't do it. Their body can't keep up with it. I think you're paying the price now. So you're spending some of tomorrow's function today. So you do all this stuff. You hold yourself together with tape. You train through injuries. So a lot of people will get injured. Like, oh, my body can't. I'm injured. But you just go to training anyway. I remember you telling me the story about when you blew your ACL out in training and then you ran home 4Ks walked home 4Ks in Japan or wherever it was.
Yep.
And I don't know how long you've not had functional knees for, as long as I've known you, which is why I always try to foot like you. But I think that a lot of the time, there's obviously exceptions to this, right? So there's people that are going to hit a wall. Their body's just going to give up to a point where you actually can't. But for most people, you can choose to spend some of your credits today that's going to make life for you a little bit harder later on, because you are training through an injury. You are giving up some sleep. You are giving up recovery. And it allows you to do some things now. But when you hit 40, it's tough.
It is, and I also get a lot from people when I call them ouchies. Pretty much everything's an ouchie unless you need surgery. I'm like, it's just an ouchie. And they're like, and then they'll go, oh, what about longevity? What about you? And I'm like, I've clocked longevity.
Yep.
I was competing at a high international level at 40 years old.
Certainly have.
So you go, yeah, maybe I'm going to be a slightly stiff, grumpy old guy at 60, or maybe
You're
I'm
going to be
close
grumpy
now.
anyway.
But then all of us, because of the sports we've done, aren't going to be as mobile as someone who hasn't done as much later on. But I don't care.
And I think that's an important point, right?
I just don't care.
No.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think you're going to be sitting on your deathbed, and there's studies that show, what are some of the top 10 regrets that people have. I don't think you're going to be sitting on your deathbed going, gee, I wish I hadn't have, made it to the Olympics and the UFC because I've really got this bad arthritis and it's really made my life shit. I don't think you're going to be saying that in the slightest.
No.
But you maybe have woed the missed opportunities for not giving it a real hard crack if you hadn't have done so.
Yeah.
And no one wants that.
No.
So what other tolls?
The physical tolls.
How many surgeries first?
I've only had 2 surgeries.
Damn.
Because
I've had double that.
Maria, who is a very big, obviously she's in charge of a lot of things. She's very good. She said,
all
the
things?
moment I have the 3rd surgery, I'm not allowed to do any competitive sport anymore. So I've needed surgery on my knee since
The 80s.
2010. Look, my neck's not good. I very bravely, we're at a training camp, 2015, big international training camp. All the top people in the world are there, and the guys are having an afternoon off. Now, I was in pretty good shape still. 2016 it was, early 2016. I was still in pretty good shape. I'd fought in November. I'd been doing a bit of judo. I went, you know what? I'll go and train in the session, the afternoon off. And came back, got landed on my head. I still haven't got proper feeling in these 2 fingers. Not the smartest move I've ever made. I had a good time until I got landed on my head. And that's not ideal, but I still had another 5 fights in the UFC, even after that. And the physios I went and saw, a jiu-jitsu people, Livy and Lockie, they turned around and said, okay, we'll treat you. And then the next time I came in, they sat me down and they're like, so we're going to put you on prednisolone short term. I said, if this doesn't work, we probably need to look at maybe you having some permanent damage. She'll be all right.
She'll be right, mate.
The number one quote from you, like, and myself and Trail talk about this, or use this all the time. Anytime we'd ask you about anything, any injury, whatever it was always no problem. That was your default response to everything. No problem. And it's, again, it goes back to that mentality of like, you just find a way to do the things that you want to do. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't guarantee that you're going to win an Olympics. It doesn't even guarantee that you're going to get there. But you find a way to do the things that you need to do to give yourself the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and not everyone's willing to do that.
No.
And that's okay.
Well, that's, most people are not.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, probably one of the most talented grapplers I've ever rolled with. And you went through, you were faded out and came back in and faded out. And I was always like to Dave, where's Murray? Like, because I was very competitive and I wanted to have more cracks at you. But I
know that feeling.
You were suffering with some injuries, family stuff, not necessarily family stuff.
Let's be clear. When you started and I was fading in and out, that was kind of in the midst of a 5 to 6 year bout of chronic fatigue.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. A session
I'd be, when they talk about delayed onset muscle soreness, that's like 11 days.
Really? That sucks. Because we spoke about this a few times on the fast.
He still is amazing.
So it's not like, it took me a long time when I came back into it because I felt like I could have potentially made something of myself had I not like totally bottled. But I've found that really hard to. One of the things I found hardest to get over is that I got my black belt at 26. A year later, for that whole year, would often be like the tough guy in the car, bawling because it just would happen because I felt like I was fucking dying basically, and then had the next 9 years off jiu-jitsu and return as a middle-aged guy. When the landscape's totally changed. So it's been an interesting, but I definitely my trajectory and aim was always to go higher and higher with competitive jiu-jitsu. So I would have done that had I not fallen apart in the process.
Do you mind if we get off the mindset a little, and I just delve into some more technical things? So you've done judo, your black belt, 4th degree? Third degree. Judo, you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You've competed at Commonwealth Games in wrestling. And you've competed in the UFC. So I've got 2 questions. But the first one is, from my understanding, I know a few judoka. I really like judo. As you know, my plan is to start judo, but you denied me private lessons. Dan doesn't want to train with me. Sometimes I don't want to train with me either.
I'd like to start.
I'm definitely not known for going easy. Would it be fair, and this is my understanding, that judo is significantly harder on the body than all of those other disciplines? Would you say that's the case?
100%. I don't recommend anyone who comes into the gym as an adult, I recommend they do BJJ, not judo. It's too hard on the body. It's too hard. And even being a partner, I say no to everyone with privates for judo. I'm a little bit scarred from Cyborg and Kieran Garth Robson. Now, they were vehicles for me being able to get to the gym to be able to do my extra training. But I hate doing privates. I hate it. So I don't do them.
Kieran's a hard training partner at times.
He's a beast.
He's very, very good at jiu-jitsu now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, he's come back in to do some judo as well, and he's still good. And he's better now than he was before because I reckon his mental structure's better.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for him.
I would agree.
So that actually leads into my next question. So how would you see, and I know a lot of my students want to know the answer to this, how would you see that judo can complement jiu-jitsu and vice versa, how jiu-jitsu can complement judo? And I guess Kieran's a good example of that as well, and yourself. How would you see that goes?
From the takedown perspective, so high-level jiu-jitsu's changed a little bit now, where they're happy to butt scoot even more than they used to work on the legs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It is.
The rules have changed a little bit.
A little bit,
You're not allowed to sit straight
on your bum anymore?
Not without a grip. And
Oh,
again,
that
you
grip.
must grip.
Okay.
You must grip.
And you can still score a takedown whilst they're in
grab
the
their
process
leg?
of pulling guard. Whereas before, if they'd started pulling guard, you're not going to score a takedown.
So from a takedown perspective, definitely. Also in jiu-jitsu from a control perspective on top. Now, high-level jiu-jitsu and high-level judo have actually separated big time. No leg grabs allowed in judo anymore, but there's more time on the ground. Again, there's not a focus on leg grabs. Oh, sorry, leg locks. Very, very broad overview. Judo's good. Judo helps BJJ with takedowns, gripping, especially standing, because then you can transition that onto the ground, and also top control, turtle attacks. They're the key things. Jiu-jitsu helps judo in working off the bottom, scrambling from underneath, being active on the ground, because a lot of judo guys just go turtle up. It's over, and just more time on the ground.
It's funny you should say that, because one of the hardest things I found with early on with judokas and wrestlers as well, like Talgut's a good example, is that the jiu-jitsu guys are lazy. Or no, not lazy. I found them lazy comparatively, in that there were lots of positions they'd get to and it felt like they were stalling or taking a break, whereas the judoka and wrestlers were it was relentless. There was not until they had achieved what they wanted, which was a submission on the ground or a pin in maybe Talgut's instance, but there was no ebb and flow. It was just madness, it felt like.
What do they say? They say BJJ is like a relationship and judo's like a one-night stand.
That's a really
That's
good
what they say. And it's true, though, because the intensity is higher.
Yeah.
A lot higher, and there's not so much, when it's rolling time, there's no flow rolling in judo. It's battle time.
And a lot of that's a byproduct of the rules, though. So the competition rules have determined how the art is trained, which also determines how the art develops.
100%. There is more time on the ground now in judo. So a drill we do at training now and normally the judo people now are only good at one movement. One, maybe two, but they'll hit the deck and they'll go for that one movement, but they'll have a whole heap of stuff branching off from there, like variations and things depending on their reaction. So there is more time on the ground. But in jiu-jitsu, you'll just move to a different position. Whereas judo, it's a little bit different. I think jiu-jitsu 10 years ago would help judo today a lot more.
So
Just ground stuff.
Yeah. Not many people know this, but I had a short judo career underneath your tutelage. It was glorious. And when I did compete, it was actually super fun. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I found it to be really beneficial just competing under a different rule set and having to wrap my head around the strategizing is different.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I was expecting, and it wasn't quite as bad as I thought it would be, was I was expecting to be stood up quicker. Back then it was because, was it 10 years ago?
Yeah, easy.
It was a while ago, but it is, as long as the activity on the ground was continuous, always working, they would allow you to continue. But if it was really clear that both parties weren't interested in the ground fight, they'd stand you up almost immediately.
Yep.
You're saying that's gotten better, that they'll allow...
They allowed it longer. They allow it longer now. So even if there's a little pause and you're still trying to upgrade, they'll leave you on the ground for a minute 20.
That's good.
So, so it's very different now.
Yep.
And that's why you have to... Now you can't just lay there in actual fact. You have to look to disengage or attack on the
That's
ground
good.
as well. So it is good and it is helpful. BJJ would be more helpful now.
So what you're saying is judo is less irrelevant and useless than it used to be?
Maybe. Not really. We're still in the Olympics and you guys are still struggling.
I don't think we want to be in the Olympics.
I don't know. I don't think we want to be in the Olympics either.
You'd have leg grabs if you weren't in the Olympics.
Yeah, well, that's what they said with judo, with the rule changes. You're starting to look like wrestling. We've got wrestling.
Yeah.
Change your rules.
As soon as jiu-jitsu goes to the Olympics, it's
it'd
dead.
tend to shit.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no point.
Look at Taekwondo. I mean, that's a prime example.
Yep.
And jiu-jitsu is huge. It's and the rate that it's growing, obviously not right now, but the rate that it's growing is crazy as well. So they're obviously doing something right, and it doesn't need to be in the Olympics to keep it.
No, I'd agree with that. And judo's massive as well, just not in the places where jiu-jitsu necessarily is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, maybe nobody wants to see someone have their heel torn from their body either in the Olympics.
Yeah,
you
true.
know?
Well, they don't want to probably see the leg entanglement that takes so long to get the heel
Yeah.
torn from the body. But
Yeah.
just on that, judo, is big in places jiu-jitsu isn't thing, and obviously it's big in France and a lot of the Middle Eastern countries and stuff. But I just read recently there's more judoka in Brazil than Brazilian jiu-jitsu players.
Oh, wow.
Or historically there has been. Maybe that's changing now. But judo's actually massive in Brazil. Apparently,
Judo is massive because there's such a big Japanese community there.
Biggest Japanese population outside of Japan in
Exactly
Brazil.
right. Massive. Judo is massive. And because the profile's big, because there was an Olympic gold medalist last time, they've had Olympic gold medalists along the way. Huge. But there's a big, traditionally there was a big, what's the word?
rivalry.
No. There was, the poor people did jiu-jitsu, the rich people did judo.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was massive. I don't know how it is there now. People like Flavio Canto going into the favelas and actually bringing people out to do judo. And Flavio also very good jiu-jitsu guy
Very
as well.
good.
Very, very good. So
Does a lot more jiu-jitsu on the ground in judo comps than most judo guys do.
yeah, but he's very good, so he could do
Yeah,
it.
it's
And
phenomenal.
he was awesome on the ground. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And then BJJ from a worldwide perspective has got a long way to catch up to judo in terms of all the Russian countries, all the stands, Western Europe. Judo's still massive because it's in schools as well. So that's a big thing. So.
Yeah, but the question is though whether or not it needs it. So if you're talking
Yeah.
about catching up in terms of doing the things that judo's doing, then yeah, it's got a lot to do.
Pure
but-
numbers.
Yeah,
Pure numbers.
But so you've done heaps of judo, really long career, competed at a high level, coached at a high level, pretty successful, and then you've done MMA at a high level quite successfully as well. And there was some Muay Thai in there. Was the Muay Thai just to get you to MMA?
Yep, 100%. So I knew, being a 4-time Olympian, that I wasn't going to get another debutante to fight in my first fight. I'd already had one fight previously, and it was on a raised platform like Bloodsport platform, so it was a little bit easier maybe.
What was that show called again?
Dojo KO.
Dojo K. And one of the rules was you could win by pushing them off the platform.
Yep, and I did
So
that.
it's like,
I did that 3 times.
Kind of MMA meets sumo.
Yeah, it was. It was cool. It was really cool fun. But yeah, I went, okay, I'm not going to get the opportunity to build my MMA career. I'm going to have to go in with, my striking was never pretty anyway, but to have to function not being able to rely on my judo so much was why I did the Muay Thai. And Muay Thai was heaps of fun. But yeah, it was only for MMA.
You have, 4 or 5 Muay Thai fights? Undefeated?
Yep.
Yep. And then your
Additional snort.
your MMA career started when, ended when?
Started 2012.
Yep.
Can I just interject for a sec and say, I've witnessed your strategy for overwhelming people from a grappling perspective. What was it from a striking perspective, given you didn't back yourself with your striking?
That was similar, just try and overwhelm them.
Yeah, so just incessant, constant.
Well, just constant pressure, because at some point, it's like when you can compete or roll against someone who's high level, you get sensory overloads because you're not, it's too many things for you to process all at the same time. That's what I tried to do to people.
Yeah.
Just overload them so they were like, oh my God, the fuck's this guy doing? Can he leave me alone, kind of thing. So that's what I just did, because I had no idea what I was doing in Muay Thai, really. So I just did
Through
that.
everything.
Yeah, just kept throwing things until they didn't like it anymore.
Yeah. And it worked.
Yeah, it was
It
fun.
worked at the level that you're at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously,
Oh.
when you only have 4 fights, you're not fighting for state titles.
No, and I wasn't high level by any stretch of the imagination.
So 2012, you started MMA. Finished in 2 years ago. Was that right?
Yeah, 2 years ago, yep.
So what's that? 6 years?
Yeah, about that.
That's it. You've done a lot in 6 years. So how many fights did you have? Let's call it locally before you transitioned into UFC.
I had 7,
Yeah. And then how many fights in the UFC?
10.
That's a
Wow.
Yeah,
That was my original aim too. I remember talking to Jake Matthews' dad, Mick, who I'm mates with, and he helped me with a lot of correspondence to get into the UFC and put a highlight thing out for me on social media. He's like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to have 10 fights in the UFC. And he laughed at me. And I'm like, oh, okay, we'll see, won't we? And so I managed to get to the 10, which was good. You always want to have more, but I mean, you've got to be realistic too. That's the other thing. You know how I was saying about anyone can get to anywhere? You have to be realistic as well. And if you let the voices take over in your head, which they sometimes do from a judo or MMA perspective, of, I should have done this, I could have done that. It's actually a pointless exercise. Yeah, hang on a second. You did what you could, the best way you could with what you had at the time.
And what you knew at the time as well.
That's exactly right. So there's no point. And all you can do as a coach is try and make sure that the people you're coaching don't make the same errors that you did. So.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your experience in the UFC and like some of the ups and downs with it. Like what did you get out of the experience?
It's a circus.
Yep.
It's a massive circus. I notwithstanding what we do here with the trash talk and the crap talking with friends, I don't enjoy that side of things at all. Didn't really enjoy interviews or anything like that. Competing was awesome. Competing in front of big crowds, I'm not going to lie, I really liked as well.
Yep.
Like that was great. Like especially at home, you know, like some of the fights I had, there was one in Brisbane, the one at Rod Laver, like the crowd gets right behind you. Like it's big, and it might be subconscious, but it gets you up and about. Competing at a very high level, and that was the funnest bit. The first fight was really good too because a lot of people said I didn't belong there. A lot of people said I wasn't at the level, too old, all the things I'd heard all through my career.
It's interesting as well because those of us that knew you really well and we're looking at the betting odds, I'm not betting, but guys like Byron, like the guys that knew.
Yep.
But looking at it from the outside, if you didn't know those details about you, they're like, this guy, what's he doing there? But obviously the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, well, and that's what it was. And that was a big internal battle for me too. And it was like, I need to, and it's not even proving to anyone else, it's just to myself.
Yeah.
I'm good enough. I deserve to be here. And the first fight was great. Really, really good. And then it just kept carrying on. It's the same as that fight against the Brazilian, which was one of the most horrible experiences of my life. You just...
Why was it a horrible experience?
Because I got the shit beaten out of me and I still won the fight. That was horrible.
There's a little bit of
Which fight was this?
Fabio Gleb.
Against
Galeb.
a guy called Fabio Galeb.
Yeah, I know him.
There's a few late.
He was very cheaty in that fight.
There's
Very,
a few late shots and a few other things happening. I think was he grabbing the
He was grabbing the ropes. He
and-
kneed me in the pills 3 times.
That's right.
He up-kicked me in the face when I was on the ground. Like he was...
yeah, and there was some pretty late shots too.
Yeah, the knee after the bell,
Yeah.
which knocked me out. It was great. Great experience.
So is there enough kind of adrenaline pumping and you're kind of in the zone enough to not notice those things as much, or they all hurt?
They all hurt. What I did was, after I got knocked out at the end of round 2, I walked back to the corner with these guys and I'm going, he's too big and strong. This is horrible. And Trail goes, you're winning the fight now because he's lost points. And I went, oh, okay. And I actually won the 3rd round, clearly. But he'd had enough. It was a case of he couldn't put me away, didn't know how to, and it just wasn't fun for him anymore. And I just kept going and going and going.
Where's he based?
Brisbane.
Yep.
He's actually, a very personable guy. And
Fabio's a great guy.
He's a very active
there.
competitor in jiu-jitsu and he's very, very successful.
Yeah, okay,
Very good.
cool. I was trying to connect them. He's huge.
Definitely
Massive.
Brazilians.
He's a big dude, yes.
Brazilians definitely keep their eyes on the win when they compete. Let's put it that way.
Yep. They'll, we'll leave that where it is. So 6 years, a lot of different matches. You've had some really good experiences competing. We'll call it locally, Australia.
Yep.
And you competed overseas quite a bit with the UFC as well.
Yep.
And you've had some pretty big fights. And not every fight that you've had in the UFC has gone your way.
No.
But just, there's so much, that level of experience of competing, there's very, very few people get to have that. So what I'm interested in is through those 6 years, competing at that level, having some amazing ups and some really challenging fights as well. And at the age that you are when you're doing it, managing all the other things, like what's like, I want to know more about what that experience was like and some of the things that maybe surprised you about the experience, aside from being a circus.
It just ended up being competition for me. I ran a gym, so I still run a business full time. Some of the Nancys who I coach now can't manage to teach. I was still teaching 15 to 20 hours a week while I was doing all the training. And I get some of them now going, oh, I've got my hours cut back. And I'm like, you Nancys. Like, seriously. Sorry, guys. But I just, it was back to the judo stuff. I wanted to do it. Obviously, the financial benefit was much greater. And I said that during my career that I couldn't justify doing what I was doing at that time of my life if there wasn't a financial benefit.
Yeah, we spoke about that throughout it, and you were always really, really clear about that. There was a balance with that.
Yeah.
And I think goes back to what you were talking about before, about you always have to be realistic about the context that you sit in with what you're trying to do. And if you've got a family and you've got kids and you've got bills to pay and it's like, well, I can't be spending money to do MMA.
Yeah, exactly.
That brings up, like a massive motivator for you from what I remember early in the picture was that you hated your job. It was kind of, I think you were studying accounting or...
Yeah, I was. At that time I was as well.
Didn't like that either. Like, hated the idea of being in that. So you've got some fucking massive carrots there in terms of doing something you hate, studying to do something that you hate. And I remember you saying that and saying to me, this is my option.
Yeah, absolutely.
What other option do I have? I need to do this now to make a name for myself so that I can do something else. So that's as I said, it's a big carrot. Not everyone has that same something driving them that much.
No, but it's also taking opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not taking that away from it. I'm just
absolutely. It is a big carrot.
Very strong, very strong motivator there to not want to be there and not want to go back.
100%. And now I get to do what I love. And at this time when we've been forced to be shut down, when I walk into the gym to do some renos we've been doing, I appreciate even more that I get to do what I love all the time.
Yeah.
And it'd be the same for you guys too. You're
yeah,
like,
definitely.
Like, it sucks that we can't do it, but man, I'm lucky. I get to, even when I'm tired and there's stuff going on, I still get to do what I love.
It's amazing
every day.
And we get to spend our day doing it with people that love it as well. So it's the places they come to get away from all the other bullshit that we've managed to move on from for the most part. Obviously, there's still business stuff that isn't super fun, but it's when you got to the end of you had your 10th fight, and you're getting old as shit in athlete terms because it's like 40s.
How old were you in that 10th fight?
40.
Yeah. Was it like, I've done my 10 fights, I'm done? Or was it like, I reckon I could do one or two more?
I still wanted to do more. The UFC weren't going to renew my contract. I'd fought out my contract, which is fair enough. I was old. And my last 2 out of the 3 last performances weren't great. And you've just got to accept that that's what it is. That's what it is. I mean, what can you do? I mean, I got poked in the eye in the last fight. I don't know if it was his thumb or his knuckle, but that was probably the worst pain I've ever felt. That wasn't ideal. My eye's still not perfect, but it should be right.
Just add it to the list.
There it is.
No problem.
But yeah, I've retired a few times, as you know, from judo. Retiring's hard, but my body just can't cope with MMA anymore. I can, towards the end, I could have a really hard session on a Monday. I'd still be struggling for our big session on a Wednesday. And another big session. I couldn't string weeks together anymore, as well as the making weight. They were the 2 big things where my body was just going, it's probably enough now.
You're clearly not making weight now.
No, definitely not making weight now. I deserve a break. I've been making weight for a long time.
You have, actually, and that's an interesting thing is that I've trained jiu-jitsu for a long time, but I've always fought in the weight class that I've never had to cut weight.
Yep.
And it's something that I never wanted to add that in. It just wasn't worth it to me. I also sit naturally at a really good kind of weight, but
Scrawny weight.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you looked at it internationally, it would have made a lot more sense to go down to the next weight class because it's only a few kilos. But I've never had to deal with cutting weight like you guys did so many times. And then, you're doing it in judo, but then you're also like the UFC, it's a whole nother thing as well.
Yeah. It's completely different with the UFC. I remember a certain person laughing at me when I said I was going to make 84 for the first time and saying there's no chance in hell. Laugh.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Laugh.
So when you walk into the ring, what do you reckon you weigh? If you weighed in at 88, under 88,
Under 84. 84.
okay. So
Oh, for MMA?
yeah,
Yeah, 84 kilos. I'd walk in fight time at 92. I'd lose 6.5 kilos in fluid over 36 hours and then recover.
Probably wouldn't help having all that really heavy Hungarian food at home all the time.
No, that wasn't ideal. When I was dieting, it's not fun, but you do it over a longer period, so it's okay. Like, I couldn't do judo like that because you're competing 12, 13 times a year. Couldn't do that to my body. In MMA, you're doing it twice or 3 times a year. I've got 8 weeks to do it. It's not fun, but you get there.
so that you got like a 24-hour recovery period.
24 to 36, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I mean that's significant. Was judo different in terms you had to
Yeah.
cut and then you
Either
weigh
you
in
fight
before
in fight on the morning, so weigh in at 7, fight at 9 or 10. Now what it is you weigh in the night before at 8, between 8 and 8:30, and there's a possibility you'll be random weight tested, and you have to be within 5% of the weight. So you have to be,
Stopping weight cutting, basically.
yeah, you have to be within a range. So the 70 kilo girl I have, she has to be 73.5 all the time. You know, and it is better, and it's also better from the perspective of the health of athletes
I
as well.
agree,
The
100%.
MMA guys, I mean, kill themselves. The amount of times I've seen people like collapse at making weight or just it's not fun. It's not fun, but if you want to compete in the sport in that set of rules and those parameters, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
Fighting 93 kilos wasn't really an option. They were too big. 88 kilo division would have been perfect for me. But 84, we did it, even though Dave said I could never do it.
You did. You proved me wrong. Well, I mean, to be fair,
was so
though,
funny.
to be fair, when we trained a lot, you were around 100 kilos.
Yeah, back then, about 95, 96, yeah.
Yeah. So it's still like, man, are you serious? Like, how?
Yeah.
What? Like, yeah. But again, you did it.
There's a pattern here. There's a life pattern, mate. You've
Yeah, there is.
done some outlandish shit just because you decided to do it. That's pretty inspirational, to be honest.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very inspirational.
It is. I mean, and there's things that we haven't touched on that make your experience of what we're doing a little bit more challenging. As Muzz kind of mentioned, you've family, kids, and one of your sons has got some health issues that have been very challenging for you guys to manage. You've also add on to that your wife was also a very high level competitor as well. I believe that your mother, when you were growing up, was in a wheelchair for most of the time that you grew up as well.
No, the whole time.
The whole time?
My mum was had a car accident when she was 16.
Yeah.
So 16. So she was, 20 when she had me, 2021?
How much? That's amazing in itself. How much do you think? From when we've spoken about it, your mother has a very similar attitude towards things as you, which is like you just do what you got to do and you find a way.
Yep.
Do you think that a lot of your approach to things comes from having that is there more of an ultimate example of that than seeing your mother who's wheelchair bound just going and doing life as if she's not?
Yeah, I think so. She never made excuses for anything. Obviously, back in the 80s, there wasn't that many people in wheelchairs moving around. She was in hospital for a year when she broke her back in a car accident. Probably. And she's hard. She's hard. Like she's just, and she still works full time.
Yeah.
She's good. She's probably a very good example of reason of no one's got any excuses.
Yeah.
None at all. So, it's probably the ultimate example. And Maria, I've been very lucky. Even like she's sacrificed a lot. I mean, obviously she came back and went to her 5th Olympics, but I have to have had some buy-in from her to be able to do the extra stuff. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do it.
No.
And that's why I'm very patient with the guys who fight now, because relationships, having kids, they're all very important. Bring your kids to the gym for training. I used to bring my kids.
Yeah.
My whole MMA career and judo career. Your kids, bring them.
Yep.
No stress. No stress. We just make it work. Just come. The only bad session is one you don't do. And these are all cliches, but they're true.
Most cliches are true, man. That's why they exist. Well, I'm serious. Like, it's a lot of those things are true, and we kind of let them float by because they're corny. But there's some really, really common themes that kind of keep coming up again and again and again. But you've got the 4 things. So reiterate those, summarize those 4 things that you said were really important at the start.
Consistency, structure.
Yep.
God, I can't remember.
Oh, I've put him under the pump. You have been punched in the head, haven't you?
Yeah. Consistency, structure.
Hard work.
Hard work.
What was the other one? Shit. Now
Stubbornness. That was
Let's call it resilience.
But consistency and structure are the things I drill all the time.
Yep.
Have to be consistent, have to be structured.
Yep.
Otherwise, what's the point of doing something? We're doing this for this reason, and we're doing it every week for this reason. I mean, leading into Auckland, when we had the 4 guys on, we did the same set of ground and grappling drills, 3 different specific movements, let's say, specific to MMA, for 12 weeks.
Yep.
So there's no point doing any more. Jake did it for most of his fight, and Jimmy did exactly the stuff we did and was awesome for the fight in his grappling. And MMA grappling is very different from BJJ grappling, and that's something we're seeing more too, that you need to adjust how you do things. It's very different, very different.
Yeah, it is, and it's becoming more different as well. It's like
absolutely.
the split that's happening between judo and jiu-jitsu. They've always been different, but they're spreading further and further apart. You're seeing the same thing happen with the jiu-jitsu that's relevant for MMA.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's that maybe jiu-jitsu's sport gi jiu-jitsu is moving further away from those. It's not to say those guys aren't.
You could argue it's, some would argue it's happening within jiu-jitsu itself.
Yeah.
Too, as we see no gi and gi diverge quite a bit.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day, that you've probably got 5 categories of jiu-jitsu. Broadly, you could say 3, where you've got MMA, self-defense, and sport. And then sport can be broken down into 3 categories, being gi, no gi, and then sub only.
Yep.
But they are all becoming further and further separated from each other because, again, the way that the rules are structured changes the way that you train it, which opens up opportunity to develop in certain directions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is not a bad thing. It's just a thing.
Yeah, it's just a thing. That's exactly right. And that's what it is. That's how it is. So.
Do you have any more questions before we... I'm sure that you do.
Well, look, no, I don't really. I would say thanks for coming on, and you are definitely a source of inspiration within the community, locally, and to the people who have trained with you, and obviously many people who haven't trained with you. And those who don't know your story, who get to hear it now, I'm sure they'll be inspired too. So thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
We do appreciate you coming on. Is there anything that you want to finish up with that you might think is worthwhile, whether it's people that are interested in martial arts that want to get into it, people who are training recreation, or people who compete, jits, judo, MMA?
Not really, not anything that I haven't said. It's just, it's a structure thing, structure, consistency, and I harp on those things even at home as well.
Yep.
With training at home, but thank you very much for having me on. It's good to catch up with you guys. I haven't seen this guy for a long, long time, so it's good.
It's been a while. So if you're in Footscray Resilience Training Centre, what do you guys offer?
We do boxing, BJJ, judo, CrossFit, MMA.
Bam. And you're probably safe to say that you've got one of the strongest stables of MMA guys that are fighting at an international level at the moment.
Yeah.
And I know a bunch of our guys cross-train with you guys.
Yeah.
So if MMA's your jam at a high level, he's definitely a good guy to see. But we appreciate you coming on.
No, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Take care, guys. Make sure you train.
And we won't have to cry.